The Jesse Blake Sports Report with Jesse Blake.
Welcome to the Jesse Blake Sports Report. Whether this is your first time here, your last time here, or somewhere in between, I appreciate that you're here today so that we can talk about Arthur Kaliyev and how he is now on the trade block with the Los Angeles Kings and how the Toronto Maple Leafs should look into at least acquiring him. So there's a lot going on here because the Los Angeles Kings, if you don't know, are in a complete tailspin. And to put this in perspective for you, since January 1st, so this calendar year, so far, the Los Angeles Kings are the worst team in hockey. That's not hyperbole, but it is hyperbole. They're the worst team in hockey if you do not count the Chicago Blackhawks as a hockey team. As of January 1st, by points percentage, the Los Angeles Kings are 31st in the National Hockey League. The only team by points percentage worse than the Los Angeles Kings are the Chicago Blackhawks. I don't know what happened. To start the year, the Kings had a historic road winning streak. They look great. They look great to start the year. And somewhere along the way, as we reached the winter months and in December, they completely fell off a cliff. Todd McClellan does not have this team playing correct hockey. Drew Doughty's playing too many minutes. I'm not going to get into all the struggles and why the Kings are struggling, but they're not good right now. They're literally the second worst team in hockey since January 1st. And they're the worst team in hockey if you don't count the Blackhawks as a team. So with all that being said, guys aren't happy as you would be when things are going terribly. And Todd McClellan might lose his job after the All-Star break. We'll see how the game on Wednesday goes. If they lose that one, maybe that's it for him. But as I said, guys aren't happy. Coach might be out the door. And the guy who's mainly not happy right now, who is in the rumors, is Arthur Kaliyev. And Arthur Kaliyev has requested a trade, or at least the Kings are open to moving him. This was from Elliot Friedman earlier today. He said on 32 Thoughts, the Kaliyev thing is interesting. I do think they would move him now. It's been made pretty clear behind the scenes there that it's Kaliyev's time to go somewhere else where he can have a bit more of a role has probably come. I do think the Kings would do it if they found maybe a depth player with some edge that they could replace him with. I do think LA would do that. And Elliott wasn't the first person to report this. A couple of days ago on Insider Trading, Darren Dreger had the scoop about Kaliyev, and this was in the Hockey News by Austin Stanovich, who had Darren Dreger's quote. This is what he said. On Insider Trading, Dreger was asked if Kaliyev was one of a few players looking for a change of scenery or just change with the team they're with, responded Dreger. Kaliyev's been a healthy scratch multiple times in LA, which also has clubs around the NHL paying attention. Could there be a fit? Could there be an opportunity to move? The Kings have stated that they're not quite interested yet in moving Arthur Kaliyev, but something has to change. This young guy needs to play. So there you had last week Arthur Kaliyev being scratched and Darren Dreger reporting that they're looking for some sort of change within the organization. And then now, 4 days later, Elliott's like, yeah, they're kind of opening to moving him. This is it. He's on the block. Let's confirm that. Something needs to change here with Arthur Kaliyev. Something needs to change with the Kings overall. But we're focusing in on Kaliyev. And the Leafs can always use depth wingers with high upside. Kaliyev hasn't had the greatest start to his career. He's a second-round draft pick. He has a career high of 28 points he put up last year in 56 games, which is something. 14 goals is his career high. He did that in 21-22. And this year, he has 6 goals, 8 assists in 38 games. But as we just went through, has struggled mightily this season, being in and out of the lineup. So a second-round draft pick from 2019 who makes under $900,000, is under control for a number of years, is an RFA at the end of this year. The qualifying offer won't be much or whatever you want to sign him to. There is a depth winger with high scoring upside that the Leafs need. They need an abundance of this because, and I'm not just talking about right now, I'm talking about looking at the Leafs team moving forward in the many years that they have going forward, with Austin Matthews signed to $13 million, with William Nylander now signed to $11 million. Mitch Marner and John Tavares are still on the books for next year. With all of these guys making all of this money, they need these depth wingers. They need these pieces of young guys who are under control, who don't make a lot of money, who could one day be surprises, who could come up and play higher in the lineup. Right now, Kaliyev is a fourth line, third line player. He's not cracking the top six in probably most any teams, but there is the upside. He's only 22 years old, hasn't worked out in Todd McLellan's system because Todd McLellan is trying to get him to play this really responsible hockey. Unfortunately for Kaliyev, he doesn't work in McLellan's system. He's not playing this giant two-way game at right wing, and he's not really defensively responsible at his young age. So if you get into a system on the Leafs where it's a little more, hey, maybe on the third line, you can have fun, you can get going. Right now, I'm looking at a guy like Nick Robertson, who, when he's unleashed on the third line next to Domi and Holmberg, he looks fantastic. And that gets me to where Kaliyev could fit in the Leafs lineup. And I'm looking at it and I say, Noah Gregor, David Kampf, Arthur Kaliyev. That's a fun fourth line. With Calle Jarnkrok out for a while, you need wingers to fill out this team. And with Ryan Reeves, you're not getting the goal scoring or the defensive side of the game. So why not utilize that position for somebody who has a high upside offensively? That's how I would look at it. Plus, Kaliyev is a right winger, but he shoots left. There's opportunity there for him to take Noah Gregor's spot in the lineup as well, because Noah Gregor is fast as hell. Like, he's so fast when he's out there, but that's kind of it. There isn't much going on there. So we might know what Noah Gregor is. With Kaliyev, there's still questions. He's the mystery box. He's the giant high upside. And the more guys you pluck that have the high upside, the more likely you're going to hit on one of those guys. So why not take the chance there? Because Noah Gregor is not really going to get better at his age. So now it's a question of, how could the Leafs acquire this player? They don't have the assets that the Kings are looking for. Something that's very apparent in the Kings' search for a new home for Kaliyev is that in return, they want some sort of gritty depth forward, because that's kind of the way they want to play, and that's what they're missing right now. They don't have that in their lineup. And I look at this team and I say, okay, how can the Leafs get Kaliyev? Ryan Reeves has got to be out the door. In like fantasy land where we're making these trades right now, there's, I think, an opportunity that you sell LA and Rob Blake on Ryan Reeves. Rob Blake loves his veterans. He loves to play the hell out of them. Who knows if he looks at Ryan Reeves and says, that's the toughness we need. We don't have anybody. We can have Doughty fighting battles out there. Gunstrom, he's trying his best, but he's not the gritty forward who can also perform. Maybe LA takes a shot on Ryan Reeves, but like, that's not enough. Reeves for Kaliyev 1-for-1. Doesn't do it. So maybe that doesn't work. So we get a little bit more creative here. This is the thought process. I was just sitting here tonight thinking like, okay, if I put on my GM hat, which I often love to do in NHL, and I say, how can I acquire Kaliyev if I'm the Leafs? And everything's a factor here. One name that's been thrown out there is Jordan Greenway. The Vancouver Canucks have been looking at Jordan Greenway and stealing him from the Buffalo Sabres, who paid a hefty price last year to acquire him. The Sabres traded a second-round pick and a fifth-round pick to Minnesota for Greenway. So when I look at this, I say, okay, they're going to need that capital back. The Buffalo Sabres aren't just moving on from Greenway for nothing. You know, he's a trade chip, and I believe where there's smoke, there's fire. In The Athletic, they reported that Vancouver is looking at adding Greenway to their lineup to bolster themselves for the playoffs. That report isn't thrown out there because Greenway's safe. So let's say in fake world scenario, the Kings know about those rumors. They call up Buffalo. They know Greenway's on the block for a good offer. They say, we're in the same division as Vancouver. We're going to scoop them on this. Greenway here is better than Greenway in BC. We're going to send a first-round pick to Buffalo. Toronto is going to send a third-round pick to Buffalo, plus Ryan Reeves. LA then sends Kaliyev to Toronto, and Buffalo sends Greenway to LA at, let's say, 25% retained, because they get that first-round pick. You're going to do a little retention for me. The salary cap should work. It's a little dicey. I don't know about the cap gymnastics that LA can pull to get this done, because it's $3 million this year and next year, which is like great for them for next year. But this year, they're really up against the cap, and it's a little tight. But you have the Kaliyev money going out, which is only $900,000, and they have about $1.3 million on the books. But if you want to make something work on the cap, I've learned that there are a million ways you can do it. So that I'm saying 25% retained by Buffalo. They find a way to make that $3 million work for this year, whether it's another subsequent move or sending someone down or some LTIR shenanigans. They'll find a way. Greenway gets to LA. Kaliyev gets to Toronto. Reeves gets to Buffalo. And first round and third round picks also get to Buffalo. Something like that is what I'm envisioning happening here. I think Kaliyev would be a nice little project for Toronto because he's a winger with high upside who makes a little amount of money, and that's what they need over the next couple of years to make the salary cap work with all of these superstars making all of this money. The Kings desperately need some sort of grit and some sort of shakeup. I don't know if Greenway could fix their fortunes, but it'd be worth a shot if you're Rob Blake and you say, hey, this team needs to win and I need to fix some of my mistakes because I haven't been doing a great job as GM and I've built a poor team, as evidenced by them being the 31st team in the league since January 1st. So that's kind of what I'm throwing out there. Kaliyev to Toronto. What do you guys think? Am I completely out to lunch? Is this semi-realistic? Let me know your trade scenarios as well. Tweet me, write in the comments, do whatever. Let me know. Let me know what you think. Hey, don't forget to hit like on this video if you are watching on YouTube. Subscribe as well if you are listening on your favorite podcast app. Rate this podcast and give it 5 stars. I appreciate that. That is it for me tonight. I will see you next time. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you chose to be listening or watching this podcast right now, and I appreciate you for that. Good night from Toronto.
And that is how it's done.
The Jesse Blake Sports Report with Jesse Blake.
Jesse Blake, the guy that likes to hear his name twice in one sentence. Sure, I know him. No, he doesn't have an ego at all.